Okay, I'm live. I had a little bit of technical difficulty there, so I apologize for that. But this is my first show today on Everett's studio and classroom. So let me put my let me put my best face forward here. My wife Gloria is in the studio with me today and trying to monitor everything going on. Uh, Hi out there, everybody. Let's see. See if I can put the chat on. So I got the chat on to see if anybody will check in, and I'm broadcasting on first time to YouTube and to on Facebook page. It's Everett Costaboon, artist, and the other one is on YouTube, Everett's Watercolors. So either one of those, you should be getting announcements when they go out. And what happened when I was all set to go, and I hit the stream button and it said it didn't have the connection. I want to give you a little tour of my classroom here just to show you what I have set up. The first I have an overhead camera which shows uh, my palette and all my paints and everything and water buckets, and those bottles you see up there on the top row there. That's my palette and a bottle on Everett's Watercolors, and we'll go over those a little bit later. Okay, then I have a close-up camera. So for close-ups, I can bring up things right up to the spot and show you what's going on. And of course, going back to the main camera is when I can talk to you face to face. So one thing I wanted to start with, I want to show you, that's my capabilities. I think from here, so I can give online classes, I can get on and show you techniques and so forth. And if you have a camera hooked up or whatever, just a computer hooked up, and we can do an interface together. So I can give you small classes, or we can get on and do a little consultation, give you some guidance or whatever. So there's all kinds of capabilities we can talk about. So let me show you my website. I want to take you to my browser page. Here's my website, Everett's Watercolors, Arts and Supplies. And you'll see here that palette in the bottle is the very first thing. It's sold exclusively at Everett's Watercolors. And I also have Holbein Artists watercolor paints, and I have the artist colored pencils. And I'm a Holbein distributor for those two products. On my home page is what you're looking at right now, and there's up here, and you look at the left-hand side, left corner, there's a little navigation screen there. You can go to my classroom, and here's where I'll be posting the replay of all the online videos. So this is where you can go here to look at the classroom activity, because the name of the show is Everett's Watercolors Classroom. I also have an art supply page, and here I have all the supplies I'll show you today will be available on my website, and you can see here all the way down to I have brushes on here, color pencils, spray bottles, paper. So everything you need, everything you see on today's broadcast will be available on my website. I also have a blog here, an art gallery where I have my paintings, and I'll be updating that soon again. And also under art videos, I have a lot of videos here from YouTube, so you can go down and look at those. I've broken them out and put them in certain categories of lessons and spray bottle techniques and so forth. So I'll take you back to the home page. So in here, there's quite a few variety of things that you can take a look at on my website, and you get there by going to www.everettswatercolors.com. That's my website. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is take you to my painting table and show you again up to detail some of my my art tools. I'll go to the overhead camera. Yeah, I'm going to move around here so you can see what I'm doing. Uh, my palette here to the right. This is my painting table, and it's a Gator board, incredible board, which is a nice flat surface to work on. I've got it painted black so I can see it gives me a nice presentation with white paper. And over here is my palette, and I have in my large palette, I've got a special palette here I got set up. I'll talk about in a minute. On my regular palette, I got 21 colors. These are Holbein colors, Holbein Artists colors that I use, okay? And this little palette here is something I just purchased, and it is really neat. And what I've done is, the 21 colors is fine, but what I'm trying to do now, I'm going back to try to do a minimized palette. So what I'm able to do here is take my colors, and what I've got in here in my palette right now, on this particular palette here, I've got just the particular colors I want to start. I have it breaks down into warm colors and cool colors. And in this particular case here, I have yellow, and that's quinacridone gold, red, which is pyro red, blue. I've got two blues in here. I've got ultramarine blue, and I have cobalt blue. Now I have a violet, quinacridone violet, and over here I have an orange, a yellow. It's called yellow orange. And then I have off to the right here, below the quinacridone violet, I have Hooker's green, the only green I have on this palette. And in addition to those 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 colors, I have black and I have white. Okay. Now, the reason I really like this, and I'll go over this when I do my painting, is that I like the wells in here. There's 4 deep wells, and I got 2 little mixing pots over here for painting. And I'll go through the demonstration when I go through the painting. So today I'm going to use just a minimum palette with just those 7 colors, and then the mixing here. Okay, and we'll go over some mixing exercises here in a few minutes. Okay, my brushes. Let me give you a close-up screen of that. Well, my brushes, these are Holbein brushes. These are synthetic brushes. This is the 1-inch brush. This is a number 4 rigger. Then I have a 3/4 inch brush, Holbein. And this is a number 16 round. I love this one. It's big old round brush, holds a lot of paint. It comes to a nice sharp point. Then I have a number 6 round. And this is a half inch flat. So these are Holbein brushes, synthetic. And those are on my website, or on my on my supply page. And in addition to that, on occasion in my classroom here, I'll be showing this also. These are natural hair brushes. Over here I have the red sable. These are silver brush red sable brushes, 3/4 inch, half inch, and I have a number 8 round, and a number 4, number 5 rigger. Okay, and those are on my website too. I sell those on my supply page. Excuse me, I get my website and supply page mixed up. But anyway, these are natural. These are red sable natural hair. Over here, these are no longer available. These are my Kaninsky sables over here. They're the finest brushes in the world, but they're no longer available. They don't sell them anymore. So this is I don't sell these, but I use them in my art because they're wonderful brushes. But I'll be using the natural hair brushes again on a demonstration or on one of my live classrooms. Okay, now my spray bottles, which I'm very proud of. We searched, my wife Gloria and I searched for 2 years to find a decent spray bottle, and this is a palette in a bottle dot sprayer because of the application. And I call it a palette in a bottle because I can put all my colors into this bottle here from my palette, and I can use them in a spray pattern. This happens to be, this dot spray gives me a nice coarse spray. I guess it's nice for trees or bushes, or for texture on an old building or something like that. It's a wonderful way to paint. I've done a whole painting just with spray bottles. So this is the dot sprayer. It's companion fine mist. Again, palette and bottle. It's a companion fine mist, and this is a normal. Gives a fine mist spray, which most people are familiar with. And the nice thing about these two bottles are these tops are interchangeable. I can take the colors out of one, and I can just interchange the tops, and I can use the blue in with the fine mister and so forth. But it's more convenient sometimes to have, for example, here I have the fine mist in the blue also, because I use the fine mist sprayer with blue paint, and I always use the coarse dot sprayer with blue paint. So I have a large quantity of my paints already in spray bottles, and I'll be using that a little bit today and a little bit of demonstration. Now back to the overhead camera again, and I have two water buckets over here. One with clean water to refresh my paints, and over here is my rinse bucket. And I have a box of clean tissues over here that I use to clean my brushes off with. Okay. And I have a sponge over here. So that's basically all my supplies I use. What I want to do now is go into a small painting. And I have a lot of paintings. I've been painting. My background, let's go over a little bit. I've been painting since 1991. Well, actually it started a little before that, but 1991 is when I started watercolors. And what's that, 30 years? It's 20, yes, yeah, it's like 33 years I've been watercolor painting. And I started with acrylics, but then I transferred over to watercolor with instructors that I followed and so forth. So I've been painting a long time. I've held a lot of classes, live classes in classrooms. I've done demonstrations. And so this live show here, my live classroom, and being able to videotape and so forth is a whole new adventure. So I've been looking forward to this for a long time, to do some live classes and do some live demonstrations. And I'm going to try to hold these weekly. I'm going to try to do this weekly every Thursday, and at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to try to hold it down to 45 minutes to an hour. So if you plan your schedule, it'll be Thursday at 2:00, and plan some time for maybe 45 minutes to an hour of discussion and comments. Let me see. I was just checking my response page over there. Let me try this out. I'm going to try this out too. I'm going to type in something. Okay. I just texted out a message there on my chat page on this streaming software is taking both of the streams and putting it out to Facebook and to YouTube simultaneously. So I just put a chat out there, and I don't know, you should both get the same message. We'll see. And give me some comments. If you're not able to do a chat on this one, make some comments to the broadcast that you receive. And let me go back to my, that's something else I want to show you. Minimize this. If you go here, there's two places to contact. You can go to my classroom browser. So up here on the home page, go to the live classroom, and down here it says contact Everett here. So there you can send me a message. What you can do there is put your name and your email address there. But here's something else. Under contact us, go over here to the navigation page. Under contact us, here's my my address and phone number and so forth. But here you can email me, and here you can send me a message. Put your name and your email address and put a comment down here or a question or so forth. So that, and here's my email address here. You can send this to me up here. So there's several ways to make contact with me. And also when I'm on live or when I'm on YouTube or on Facebook, you can get a hold of me there also. Okay, I'm switching around these cameras here. I hope you're not confused, but that's my first broadcast. I'm getting used to how I'm going to put all this stuff together. And Let's see, I'm back on chat over there. Okay. Uh, what I want to do now is do a little demonstration of paint. So I want to get my brushes wet, okay? But before I do that, I'm going to go through, just give you a little class on how I prepare, and I think that's important. So let me go over to my painting table. So I'm on my painting table, and as a beginning, when you start painting, of course, you pick a subject. That's probably the most obvious thing you start with. But when you find a subject, this is going to be, I'm going to do a little bit of landscape painting here today, or at least get started. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to maybe pick a subject like this week, and I'm going to get started on it, and I'll see how far I go, and I may not finish it. So what we'll do is I'll hold that off, and we'll continue next week on the next program and pick it up there. So you can either see it on the rebroadcast or pick it up on the new program next week. Okay, that's how we're going to run that. But let me go through some ideas here about painting. When you get started, you pick a nice subject. Now I picked this one out of a magazine. It's outdoors here at the Blue Ridge, and I really like this scene here. It's got a mountain, and got some trees. It's got a little house here in the corner. It's got a fence line and a road coming in here. Okay, and I like landscapes. Landscapes are one of my favorite subjects. I do a lot of other things, but the first thing you do, and I've got a little mat board here, is I don't want to paint the whole thing. So I'm going to select by putting a border around it. So what I've done here is, number one, on my left side, I don't want, here's a section here that I can block out. So I don't want the eye to go out off the page. So I've got almost a natural element here that'll work for me, a fence line and some trees and so forth. So that'll keep the eye from going out on the left side. Now off to the right side, there's also a block. Here's a light area, but there's a tree mass over here on this side. Okay, so there's several ways here I can keep the eye from going outside the painting. Now I'm going to keep I like the mountains, I like the trees. I'm going to put the little house over here because it gives you a little bit of interest to, I don't know if that's going to be the impact area or my interest area yet. That's a possibility. I want to keep everything out of the middle of the painting. So I got to watch this post here. I may have to change that. But also what I want to do is I want to add some action in here. So this little rider down here on the bicycle, but I don't like. Hey, oh hi Cooper, I see you got me on Facebook. I'm glad you found me too. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, but here I am now. Okay. So what I did, I found on another book, I found a better angle. Let me take it to let me show you on my close-up. I think you'll see it better on my close-up camera. Okay. So on the close-up camera, this is why I have so many cameras in here, and I'm in the studio. I have a lot of fun playing with these. But you see the character over here. I'm this little guy on the bike. But I don't like the way he's set, and I don't like the angle he's at. So what I did was I went to I found another sample here of another rider, and this one here is a much better position and a much better angle. Okay, so I like this particular figure here, the shape and the size and so forth. I like that. So that's what I'm going to put in my painting. Also, also some choices. Here's the one I picked up. Here's a guy walking in the woods with his dog. Okay, so that's another possibility. Okay, I could put someone walking along the road with his dog taking a walk. Okay, so those are things that I think about when I'm doing a painting. What am I going to put in the painting? How to make it more interesting and so forth. So that's how I start out. I start out with a general picture, or a general topic of what I want. Back to my painting table again. But so finding a good selection and then looking at some options of things. And I think the best guidance here is you don't want to necessarily paint with just one picture. In fact, I have found with my experience that you can never find the perfect photograph or the perfect picture. You can start out with an idea of something, whether it's a landscape or a still life or even a portrait or something. You're going to have to make some changes to that, whatever it is, to make it more interesting. So, but you start with an idea, and then you can add elements to it to make it better. And as an artist, and this is one of the philosophies I go into, as an artist, it's up to us to make the picture or the painting better than the photograph. You got to put your feeling into it, and you got to put your how do you understand, how does it make you feel, and therefore you want to pass that information along to whoever looks at your painting. So I'm looking at a riding or a bike ride along this trail here with this beautiful scenery here in the Blue Ridge Mountains and with the landscape. So that's kind of where I'm heading for this. Okay, now what I do though is I transfer that picture that I just showed you, I transfer it to a sketchbook. And this happens to be one of my sketchbooks. I have a lot of them, but this is the one I used. And I transfer the objects or the shapes onto my sketchbook. Because I'm not going to paint from the picture. That's another lesson I have, is don't paint from the picture. Come up with your own design. You can use the elements that's in the photograph or in the picture, but put it where you want to put it. And so what I've done here is I've got the mountains in there, and I got the trees, I got the small building, I got the fence line in here and the roadway, and I put this figure here on the trail itself, heading this way. And I used that picture that I showed you before, the one I picked. Now the close-up camera, you can see a little more detail now. So what I've done there, I've redrawn the scene, and I put the biker over here on the road to where I want him. So I've designed the painting the way I want to paint it, the way I want to see it, using the photograph and so forth. But before I started though, one of the challenges I had was to, get the shape of that particular bicycle person, okay? So I had to practice drawing, or drawing what I wanted. I had to get the right angle, the right size, the shape. And really, when you put a figure into a painting, the most important thing is the posture. What is the person doing? Sometimes you just have a picture of a person standing somewhere or possibly walking. But here I wanted a person riding a bicycle. So I had to get the right pose. So I started over here with almost a stick figure, the angle of the shoulders and the hip and the position of the arms and the legs, very important. So that's what I did here as a preliminary sketch to my drawing. And I also practiced a little bit on the shape of the house. The house is not what I changed the shape of the house a little bit. And over here I even did a little diagram of a potential person walking with a dog or something. That was just another idea. So I did all my planning and practicing on my sketchbook. Okay. So those are, this is art is an ever-going, evolving process. It's something that it takes time to learn, but once you've mastered some of the things, it becomes a little easier. And of course, drawing is one thing you have to do to get familiar. And really, sketching is as much detail as you want. You can make it a simple sketch, or you can make it a little more detail. I have a little more detail here, so I want to have a little more opportunity to show and maybe help and teach the viewers of what they're seeing and how important it is to learn how to draw and how to do it. Okay, and I'll be covering drawings on my sessions here too. I won't show you how to draw, how I drew this today, but I want to show you the results of what I did. But there'll be some drawing lessons down the road, which I think may help. Okay, now Now, taking a quarter sheet piece of watercolor paper. A quarter sheet's about, well, a full sheet's 30 by 22. So this is 15 by 11. 15 by, yeah, 15 by 11. 15, 15 inches long and 11 inches wide. 11 inches this way, 15 this way. So that's a quarter sheet of watercolor paper. That's a uh, pretty good size painting. And what you can convert this to when it's done, I've usually put this into a 20 by 16 frame with a matting board around it and so forth. So a quarter sheet will fit a 20 by 16 frame. And that's what another thing I do, I paint the size of the painting based on what I will say an off-the-shelf frame, a standard frame. I don't want to have to have a specialized frame or specialized mounting or stuff like that. I want to go with what's available on the market as a standard sizes. Now 20 by 16 is a standard, one of the standard sizes. 8 by 8.5 by 8 by 10 is another size. 5 by 7. So you can go any route you want as far as the size. So you have to think about what size you're doing the painting for how you want to display it or present it later on in a frame or whatever. So those are some things I think ahead of time before I even start painting. Now looking at this, the sketch is on there. I'll bring it up close. But I've already, as I looked over the sketch, I've noticed already there's something that's a problem. Now also before I do anything else at all, after I got my sketch in here, I usually when I lay out the transfer of the sketch here, there's several ways to do that. You can use I did this all freehand, but you can do a grid system. You can draw a grid on your sketch. You know, a 3 by 3 grid, and then you put a 3 by 3 grid on your painting paper, and you can transfer from grid to grid. I mean, that's how I've done it. I've done that before, and that'll be one of my drawing lessons down the road. But you could transfer this by a grid system, and here I just did a freehand drawing, and I said I spent a lot of time on getting the shape of this bicycle, the biker here. I spent a lot of time getting the right shape of that and the right size. When you put a person in a painting, you look at the size of the fence, and you look, okay, scale. Look at the scale of the person compared to the objects around, okay? And that house is far enough away on a hill and so forth. Now, when I look also, I know what I'm going to put on the edges. I told you about the trees and the bushes over here. But I look at the center of the painting. This post right here is in the center. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the post there, but right now it's got a point. It's a little bit disturbing here. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to take this piece here, and I'm going to lengthen this, and I'm going to connect this over to here. So that what I've done now is I've moved this section here. This is an important concept. I've moved this section here out of the center. The center of the painting is right here. So this is too close to the center. So what I've done is I've moved that section. I just erased it and moved it over here. Okay. So now I've got more action right here. This may become my center of interest now. I've got some shapes here. I've got even a little building here in the background, and of course I got the bicycle rider over here, and he's got his head facing over here looking at this house. Okay, maybe he wants to go buy it or go visit somebody. Okay, I'll worry about that toward the end of the painting. But right now, I'm just thinking ahead about how my painting is going to turn out. So those are some of the planning steps before you even start a painting. Okay, get a good design from your references, either pictures or photographs or whatever. Then make a SketchUp and locate all your elements on there and do your own design. Where are you going to locate the elements? And also, Another thing I did here, come back to my sketch, I also started working on what values I'm going to use. So where are my darks and where are my lights? That's the other part. That's the other part of painting that's very important, is planning where your values are. Now the photograph may have a wonderful scene, may have a wonderful object and so forth, but it may not have good values. So if I, for example, if I want to make, if I want to make this building the center of interest, I have lights around, a light next to darks, which would be a nice attraction over here. But I can also have, I have a light and a dark over here also. So I can make either one of these areas a potential center of interest or an impact area, okay? So, right, those are things that will come along possibly on the next broadcast or so forth. But that's kind of where I'm heading. Before I start putting paint on the paper, though, I want to talk about a couple things about color mixing and so forth. So let's put the paints. This is just a real quick summary of this is a basic color wheel, and I think everybody's familiar with that. You know, the classical color wheel with the yellow and the blue and the red. Okay, that's where you go. So if you don't have one of these tools in your art tools somewhere, you need to get one. A color wheel is probably the most valuable thing you'll use because it shows you not only the complementary colors and secondary colors and so forth, but it's a very valuable tool to have available. I have this in my classroom all the time to refer to it. Okay, and also for color mixing. So here is just a simplified version. Now, the reason I put this together here was this is an example of the colors I have here on my minimum palette. I have a yellow, right now it's quinacridone gold. I have an orange, and I have a red, and I have a green, that's Hooker's green, and I have two blues actually, cobalt blue and ultramarine, and I have a violet, which is quinacridone violet. So I have those 6 colors now in this minimal palette. I have 2 blues. The reason I like 2 blues is the cobalt is a nice blue for almost anything. The ultramarine is a nice way to darken up the cobalt and to paint skies and so forth. Now the black and white is also valuable because you can, and I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate some of that. But okay, now this is a plain piece of watercolor paper. What I want to show here is what are the colors I'm going to use in this painting. Well, the first color I'm going to use is probably a blue for the sky. Well, that's a pretty simple one. This is the half-inch. This is the half-inch synthetic brush from Holbein, and the flat brush gives you a nice brush stroke to cover an area very quickly. You know, skies and landscapes and so forth. So a flat brush does that very easily, and I like this little palette here, and I'll put the description in the comments below if you're interested in it. I bought this a couple weeks ago and to try it out, and I really like it because it gives me I'll show you some other capabilities of this palette that I like also, different from a flat palette. These little wells here, I can put a lot of washes in here and get really a nice quantity that I can pick up with a brush and other things I'll show you. The cobalt blue, they're almost the same if you put down the intensity. You can tell the difference between the hue or the color, but they're almost the same as far as value. They're about the same value, just a different color. But I'll be using blue today. But when I use blue, is about the only one I'm going to use without mixer, because in the sky, if I put just a little bit of red with that to warm it up, I can put a little bit of red mixed in with my blue. So I normally put a color mixed in with another color. See, another color I'm going to use. Now, when I use the When I get down into the mountain, that's where the purples come in. Now, this quinacridone violet is a beautiful color, but it's not what I want to use. So I'm going to mix that with the ultramarine blue to give me that's the violet I'm looking for, the mountains, okay? So I'm going to be mixing colors using this is why I have my cool colors, but using the ultramarine blue with the quinacridone violet to give me, and then I may also, as I go along, uh, I may add in a little bit of Hooker's green because the mountain's going to have some trees up there. So what I do while I'm wet on wet, while it's wet on wet, I can add other colors on top and let it mix by itself. And this is the greatest. Well, if those of you who have done watercolors know what I'm talking about. But this is the advantage of a watercolor painting is that you can, with wet on wet, when you add colors into a mixture like this, number one, you never know what you're going to get. Which is really interesting. But number two, you're going to get some surprises sometimes. You're going to get some beautiful color combinations that you really never planned for. So that, but I also know that when I look at a picture, and I look at those mountains back there, okay, they could be purple mountains or blue mountains, but there's also I can see trees way back. So there's some greens showing up, and maybe a little bit of brown showing up, okay? So there are different colors back there that you can put into the mixture and not just have, the worst thing we can do is take a color and just go all the way across the mountain with one color, okay? I still have green in my brush, that's okay. And what I do here though, is I have a tissue. Before I change colors, what I'll do is I'll clean the brush out. Put it in the bucket, go up and clean the brush out. But you don't want to take an area and just paint the whole area. If I painted the mountain with one color like that, I mean that's a boring color to have for an area that big. I would say the best solution here is that as you go along, about every 2 inches, change color. And that will give you an interesting way of painting. Try to change, go back to your palette and pick up another color before you continue. And that way you'll prevent having a boring painting. So that you have your colors mixed up, you have them ready to go, but when you apply them, make sure you put in variety. Okay. Well, let me do one more thing for mixing. I think this is more important than that. I'll get the painting started. I introduced you to how to get started. I think next week we'll get into actually doing the painting. But this is more important. Let's say let's pick another color. This is fun. I'm going to have some light greens in here and some a little yellow and some orange mixtures. So let's look at that. Let's look at yellows and greens. Okay, so on my palette here, on my minimal palette, and what's nice about these little mixing pads, see, I can keep my quantity down here, the little puddles down here, but then I can bring them up here to my mixing sheet, my little mixing palette, and I can get, and remember, see how thick, how dark that is? But as I add more color to that, it gets lighter. Okay, so I can get a nice light yellow with this quinacridone. It's a beautiful color. Quinacridone gold is a beautiful color. Now I have other yellows on my palette, but I have really, this is the one color I go to a lot, quinacridone gold. That is a beautiful yellow color. But what I want to do now, I want to make green. So I have green in the palette, but I'm going to mix my green a little bit. I'm going to use the ultramarine blue. And I could also use the cobalt blue. I got that in my palette. So let's take that mixture again. Now you can start seeing the green. You can start seeing the green happening as I put the colors together. Now, if I want a lighter green, if I want a lighter green, I add more yellow to the mixture. Add more yellow to the mixture, gives me a lighter. Excuse me. If I want to go, if I want a darker green, I add more blue to the mixture. So as far as values go, I can start with a green mixture, and I can go lighter, or I can go darker, lighter and darker. And if I want to pick up, let's say I want to pick up a little orange or something, just pop it. There might be some flowers. Maybe there's some flowers. You see in this picture here, you know, there's some oranges in there. There's some flowers on the ground. So as you're painting that, as we're painting this area down here, you can throw in other colors on top of that, and let it float on there. Let that pigment float. So that you can have maybe flowers growing on the grass as you put the grass in. So that way you can add it while it's going. You either put it in while it's still wet, or wait till it gets a little drier and go on. And I can also go in with my spray bottles on top of that mix. In other words, if I'm going along and I'm painting this grass and I say, oh, I want to add some color to that, then I can pick up a spray bottle and start dropping in some color on top of that. Okay? And if I want to light, now there's another way to look at this. I've been playing with the black. Okay? Okay. If I can add black to a color and make it darker also. And that, of course, that's really going dark. But the dark gray, on top of a color will also darken it up, really darken it up. And you gotta be careful with black because it will be dulled out. And that's another reason I use black sometimes, is to dull the color or to add more color to it.
Neutral tint.
No, that's another one. That's another one. Okay. And also I got white in my palette, so if I want to lighten something up,
Paint's great.
if you want to lighten a color up, add some white to it. That'll lighten it up. Okay. What you have to do is get a piece of paper out, a brush and some paints, and play with your palette. Whatever colors you're using, whatever colors you're using, you need to get out and play with the mixtures. But if you look at this landscape now, I've got yellows, oranges, greens, blues. I'm going to show you one more before we leave. All kinds of colors in there, and you can play with those and make them anything you want. I can see a dark blue down here on the roadway, okay? And rich greens here in the foreground. That's where I'll use the hooker's green up here in the rich greens, okay? And there's some darker greens back there where I can use some hooker green mixed in with. But number one, I never used a color by itself. The palette color right out of the tube is too rich. It's too pure. You need to tone it down with something else. Just a hint of something. You can make it a little bit, a mixture with something else, but you need to make that change. I showed you up here with the blue. that you can add a little bit of red to it. Up here you can add a little bit of orange to it. Here's a whole mixture right here, a little bit of orange, blue, and so forth. Now, also what's interesting here, these fence posts. They're kind of a brown, a dark brown. Okay, well, how do you make brown? How do you make brown? Well, guess what? I have a video on my YouTube that shows how to make burnt sienna, but I'm going to show you another way. What's number one? You need to know where you're starting from. What is burnt sienna look like? What is the base color of burnt sienna? Well, if you think about it, burnt sienna is kind of a reddish brown, a reddish orange. Ooh, so you start with a color that's close. So you start with the orange. All right, now that's too light. So how do I darken that up? Well, I can add a little bit of blue to that. I'm going to use ultramarine blue. Okay, well you know what? That's turning it a little brownish. And guess what? If you look at orange, I'm looking at the color wheel now. If you look at orange and you add blue to it, that's the complement. I'm adding blue to orange, so you'll get a gray. You'll be somewhere here. So where I am on the color wheel is I'm about this location right here. Yeah. So my tip of the day is to get out your paintbrushes and to play with the mixtures. You need to learn how to make different colors. Let's go back to the other program. Okay, that's my tip of the day. And every week I'm going to come up with a tip to pass on. I've been talking about a lot of things today, which could be tips and guidances and so forth. But I kind of want to focus on one area. And this is really when you're mixing colors. The only way to mix a color is to sit down with a piece of paper and to play. But have something, maybe a reference. Maybe you say, hey, how can I get that color there? Well, you got to sit here and actually paint it. And this is the same way if you were doing a plein air. If you were going outside and you were going to paint a scene, and I love to go plein air. We'll do some plein air here on the live show. But I go out and I find a scene I like. Well, what colors do you use? Well, you look at what you're looking at, and you have to come up with a color that matches that. Now, if you start with a basic color and add to it, I'm going to make brown. Now that's getting closer right there. I've got a brown, but I think burnt sienna's got a touch of red in it, so I'm going to add a little bit of red to that. That's a little strong. That's a little strong. Let's put some orange back, a little more orange back in that. Okay, it's still strong, still strong. Okay, that's it. So I need to add a little more blue, just a touch. Okay. It's getting darker, right? And now it's too dark, so I'm going to go ahead and put some more orange back into it. Okay, so what I did there was I added, let's match them up. And that's close. It's not a perfect mix, but it's close. That's what you need to do. You need to practice. I used orange. I used a touch of red in it. Now, the problem with red is it's very powerful. So you have to learn how much to use. So you have to get your brush out and your paints and your paper and practice how much red you need to put in there, because red will take over a painting or a color. I put in ultramarine blue. Let's see. I think that those three colors, really, my base color was orange. I had a little bit of blue to redden it up. It got a little bit too strong red, so I toned it down a little bit of blue. Oh, I added blue to it first. I wanted orange and blue. That gave me a grayish, almost brown, and I added a little bit of a little red to it. So you can play around with that mixture. So I know the secret now. The secret recipe is like baking a cake. What goes into the pig, all right? I'm gonna put a little bit of red to that, just a little bit. So let's say it's 5 parts orange, 1 part red, and maybe 1 part blue. Not too much. And go back to the orange a little bit. Okay. And I think maybe a little more touch of red. Now we're getting really close there. But I'll tell you what, every time you mix the color, it's going to be different. And that's what you want to do. You want to have a variety. It doesn't, when you make the mixture, it'll be close to what you see, but each time you do it, it'll be a different color. And by mixing colors instead of using them out of the palette, I have burnt sienna sitting right here. I mean, if I want, the only thing about having burnt sienna or another color in your palette, it's just very convenient, and that's fine. If you were using something with blue or orange or green, and you had a color for that, but my experience and my advice would be you can use that base color, but add something to it to make it a little bit different than what the tube color is. It's just too rich. And so when you're painting along, you want to modify the colors. That's my tip for today. Okay, uh, I think we're going to stop here right now. I'm going to come back next week at 2 o'clock on Thursday, and I'll pick up where I left off on the painting exercise. But I thought it was so important to show you, number one, how you start a painting, how you get the sketches going, do yourself a good sketch, a good drawing, a good planning sketch. Think about your values. Think about the composition. You know, if anything in the center, what's on the outside, edges, and so forth. Plan your colors out. What colors you're going to use, what mixtures you're going to use, and then play around with your mixtures, because some of the mixtures aren't exactly what you have in the palette. And if you use just your palette colors, it's not going to look very painterly. And I'm an impressionist artist, and I try to realistically capture what I see, but I like to give it a little bit of variety and a little bit of individual expression of how I feel about that subject. So that's where the impressionism comes from. You get the colors right and the subject, you get the shape right and the values, and then the painting starts coming together. But composition is very important. And we'll go over composition a little bit more. I want to go over a little bit today about how to place things and make sure you don't have anything in the center. That's very important. Okay? Well, I'm going to sign off for today. And maybe I haven't looked at all the platforms to see if I have comments, but if you have a comment, just send them along to me. I'd like to know what your thoughts were today about what you saw, and give me some ideas of what you'd like to see. I'm going to come back next week, and I'm going to work on the painting. I kind of give you a starting point today of how I got there, but we'll go over the painting, and I'll go step by step. I'll go through it slowly. No reason to rush it. This is a learning opportunity, hopefully. And so let me know how you like the program, and give me some ideas of what you'd like to see. So in the beginning, I'll have to work on how to get this thing started properly, but I'll work out those technical details before we get together next time. So I'll see you again next Thursday at 2 o'clock, and there'll be an announcement out before the program starts. So I will see you on the next video.